My narcissist mother killed my boyfriend because he called her by her first name instead of Mrs., but reality was he refused to sleep with her. I'm Madison. I'm 26 now, but I was 23 when this happened. And I know how insane that sounds. Trust me, I know. But that's exactly what my mother told everyone at his funeral. That Tyler was disrespectful, that he had boundary issues. The whole thing was a tragic accident that could have been avoided if he'd just shown her the proper respect. But I knew the truth, and it was so much worse. The day Tyler died, I was at work. I was a marketing coordinator at this tech startup downtown. One of those places with bean-bag chairs and kombucha on top where everyone pretends they're changing the world. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were when we had our stupid team stand-ups that lasted 2 hours. My phone rang at 2:47 p.m. It was my mother, Victoria. That was her name, though she insisted everyone call her Mrs. Chen, even though she'd been divorced from my father for 8 years. Madison, something terrible has happened, she said, and her voice had this quality to it. This performance quality, like she was already rehearsing how she'd tell the story to other people. What's wrong? It's Tyler. There's been an accident. You need to come to Mercy General right away. My hands went numb. Kind of accident? He fell down the basement stairs at the house. I found him. Madison, I tried to help him, but I didn't hear the rest. I grabbed my keys and ran. The thing about my mother is that she's beautiful. Even at 52, she looks like she could be in her late 30s. She does yoga every morning, gets facials every week, dresses like she's about to walk a runway. My whole life, people have told me how lucky I am to have such a gorgeous mother, how we could be sisters. I hated it because beautiful people like my mother don't follow the same rules as everyone else. They get away with things, they manipulate situations, they make you feel crazy for noticing what they're doing. When I got to the hospital, she was in the waiting room crying delicately into tissue. Her makeup was perfect. Of course it was. She saw me and stood up, arms open. Madison, honey, where is he? I pushed past her. A doctor came out before she could answer. Young guy, maybe 30, he looked exhausted. You Madison Chen? Yes, is Tyler? I'm sorry, we did everything we could. The trauma to his head was too severe. He didn't make it. The floor dropped out from under me. I actually felt it go like I was falling and couldn't find anything to grab onto. My mother's hand was on my shoulder. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. It happened so fast. He was at the house and he was going down to get some wine from the basement, and I heard this terrible crash. By the time I got there, I shrugged her off. Why was he at your house? She blinked. What? Tyler was supposed to be at work. Why was he at your house in the middle of the day? He stopped by. And he wanted to talk to me about something about you two. Actually, I think he was planning to. She stopped, pressed the tissue to her eyes. I think he wanted to ask my blessing for proposing. That should have made sense. Tyler and I had been together for 2 years. We talked about marriage, but something felt wrong. Tyler knew I had a complicated relationship with my mother. He wouldn't have just shown up at her house without telling me. I need to see him, I said. It let me into the room where they'd moved his body. He looked like he was sleeping. There was a bandage around his head, hiding the damage. I held his hand. It was still warm. I traced the lines of his palm with my finger. This hand that had held mine through movies and thunderstorms and bad days at work. This hand that had brushed hair from my face and wiped away my tears and pulled me close when I needed it. Now it was just still empty. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough that the warmth faded. Long enough that a nurse came in and gently suggested I take a break. Long enough that my legs went numb from sitting in the same position. My mother came in eventually. Honey, we should go. There are arrangements to make. I'll help you with everything. I know how hard this must be. I looked at her. Really? Looked at her. Her eyes were dry now. There was something in her expression I couldn't read. Something almost like satisfaction hidden beneath the concern. How did he fall? Asked. I told you. He was going down the basement stairs. Was he facing forward or backward? She frowned. What when he fell? Was he going down the stairs or was he coming up? Where was the impact? Madison, I don't think. Tell me exactly what happened. Something flickered across her face. Annoyance maybe or calculation. He was going down. He must have missed a step. Those stairs are steep. I've told you before they're dangerous. I had been to my mother's house 100 times. Those stairs had a railing. Were carpeted. You'd have to be incredibly careless or incredibly unlucky to fall hard enough to die, or you'd have to be pushed. The thought came unbidden and I immediately felt guilty for it. This was my mother. She was narcissistic and difficult and made everything about her, but she wouldn't. She couldn't. But even as I tried to dismiss it, memories started flooding back. Things I'd pushed away or explained away or convinced myself weren't as bad as they seemed. Like when I was 16 and brought my first real boyfriend, Alex, to a family dinner. How my mother had spent the whole night touching his arm, laughing at his jokes, leaning in close when she talked to him. How she'd worn a dress that was too tight, too low cut for a casual dinner at home. How Alex had broken up with me 2 weeks later and wouldn't really say why, just that my family situation was complicated. Or when I was 19 and dating this guy named Connor from my college. How my mother had insisted on meeting him, taking us both out to lunch. How she'd ordered wine even though Connor and I weren't old enough to drink, then kept refilling her own glass and getting progressively more flirtatious. How she'd accidentally brushed against him when we left the restaurant. How Connor had stopped returning my calls after that. Or Jake when I was 17, the one who years later had finally admitted that my mother had cornered him at our house and kissed him. She'd told him if he ever mentioned it to me, she'd make sure everyone knew he'd been the one to initiate it, that she'd destroy his reputation. Jake had been terrified of her. He'd broken up with me over text and blocked my number. I'd blamed him for years. Thought he was a coward, a jerk. Now I understood. He was just another victim. The funeral was 4 days later. My mother planned the whole thing. She picked the flowers, white roses and lilies, expensive and ostentatious. She picked the music, classical pieces that Tyler had never particularly liked. She chose the casket mahogany with brass handles, the second most expensive one in the funeral home. She even chose what Tyler wore, pulling out a suit from his apartment that I'd never seen him wear. "He looks so handsome," she said at the viewing, touching his lapel. Her hand lingered there too long, smoothing the fabric with an intimacy that made my skin crawl. Tyler's parents flew in from Oregon. We're devastated. His mother, Patricia, could barely stand. She was a small woman, maybe 52, with graying hair and kind eyes that were now swollen from crying. I held her while she sobbed, and she felt so fragile in my arms, like she might break apart completely. Tyler's father, David, was stoic. In that way some men are when they're trying not to fall apart, jaw tight, eyes forward, hands clenched at his sides. But I saw the way he looked at Tyler in that casket. Saw the way his face crumpled for just a moment before he pulled himself back together. My mother stood off to the side, accepting condolences from people with this gracious, tragic air. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a black dress that was elegant, but not too somber, with a string of pearls that had belonged to her grandmother. She looked like she was attending a gallery opening, not a funeral. People kept coming up to her, telling her how sorry they were, how strong she was, how difficult this must be for her. Her not me, not Tyler's parents who just lost their only son her. And she ate it up. Every bit of attention, every expression of sympathy. She was the star of her own tragedy and Tyler was just a prop. At the service, she got up and spoke without asking me, without telling me she was going to. "Tyler was a wonderful young man," she said, her voice carrying through the chapel with practiced clarity. "But he had his struggles. He could be careless, reckless even. I tried to warn him about those stairs. I told him to be careful, but he was stubborn. He insisted on calling me Victoria instead of Mrs. Chen, even though I asked him repeatedly to show proper respect." She paused, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. If he'd only listened, if he'd only been more careful, this tragedy could have been avoided. I felt every eye in the room turn to look at me, judging, wondering what kind of boyfriend I'd had who couldn't even show basic respect to his girlfriend's mother. Tyler's mom made a small sound beside me, confusion mixed with grief because she knew Tyler. She knew her son, and the son she knew would never be disrespectful to anyone, let alone his girlfriend's mother, because it wasn't true. Tyler had always called her Mrs. Chen always. He was from the Midwest, from a small town where you said please and thank you and called adults Mr. and Mrs. unless they explicitly told you otherwise. He'd probably die before I stopped that thought, felt sick because he had died. He was dead, and my mother was up there lying about him to a room full of people who couldn't defend himself anymore. After the service, people came up to me. They hugged me. They told me how sorry they were. Mrs. Brennan from my mother's church group squeezed my hand and said, "It's so hard when young people don't listen to their elders. Your mother tried to help him. You can't blame yourself." But I didn't want to not blame myself. I wanted to blame my mother. Mr. Hutchkins, my old high school principal, patted my shoulder awkwardly. "These things happen, accidents, we never know when it's our time. Except it wasn't an accident, I knew it wasn't. I could feel it in my bones." My mother was holding court by the entrance telling the story again. I heard fragments of it as I moved through the crowd. So disrespectful, never listened. I warned him about those stairs. Such a tragedy. So young, if only he'd been more careful. Each repetition added new details, new embellishments, new ways. Tyler had supposedly failed to heed her warnings. I found myself walking toward her. People parted as I approached. She saw me coming and stopped mid-sentence, her expression shifting to concern. "Madison, sweetheart, stop," I said. My voice sounded strange, too calm, like it was coming from somewhere outside my body. "Stop lying." The crowd around her went quiet. She looked around at them, performed surprise. "Honey, you're in shock. You're not thinking clearly. Tyler never called you Victoria. He always called you Mrs. Chen. You know he did. Madison, grief can make us remember things differently." And he wasn't careless. He was one of the most careful people I knew. He used to double-check that the stove was off before we left his apartment. He used to remind me to wear my seat belt every single time we got in the car. He was the opposite of careless. My mother's smile tightened, cracks appearing in the facade. "This isn't the time or place." Then when, I was shaking now, my whole body trembling with rage. I've been holding back for days. "When is the time? When are you going to tell everyone what really happened?" "I've told you what happened. He fell, did he? Or did you push him?" The room went silent, completely silent. Even the organ music that had been playing softly in the background had stopped. My mother's face drained of color, then flushed red. How dare you accuse me of something so horrible? I loved Tyler like a son." "No, you didn't." The words came out before I could stop them. "You wanted him, and when he said no, you killed him." She slapped me hard right across the face in front of everyone, in front of Tyler's parents and our family and all these people from our church and my mother's social circle. The sound echoed through the chapel like a gunshot. Then she burst into tears. Perfect. Delicate tears that didn't smudge her mascara. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. She's not herself. The grief, she doesn't know what she's saying." People rushed forward to comfort her, to lead me away, to whisper about how tragic this all was, losing him so young. And now the poor girl was having some kind of breakdown. I heard the murmurs. Such a shame. Grief does strange things. She's always been emotional. Victoria is handling this. So well, considering Victoria, my mother, the victim once again, Tyler's father, David, put his arm around me. Let's get you some air, he said quietly. He walked me outside. I sat on the steps of the chapel. It was October. The leaves were turning golden red. Tyler had loved fall, had loved the way the light looked through colored leaves, had talked about taking me to Vermont to see the foliage. Now he'd never see another autumn. You don't believe that, do you? I asked David what I said in there. He was quiet for a long moment, a man in his late 50s wearing a suit that looked uncomfortable on him. Tyler had told me his dad worked construction, that he'd built their house in Oregon with his own hands. He had those kinds of hands, calloused, scarred from years of labor. Tell me why you said it. He finally responded. So I did. I told him everything. I started from the beginning, from when I was a teenager, and first realized something was wrong with the way my mother acted around boys I brought home. I told him about Alex and Connor and Jake and all the others who'd pulled away from me for reasons I hadn't understood at the time. I told him about Marcus, my boyfriend, when I was 20. How my mother had shown up at his apartment unannounced one night when I was visiting. How she'd been drunk and crying, saying she was having a crisis and needed someone to talk to. How Marcus had let her in because what else could he do? She was his girlfriend's mother and she was in distress. How my mother had tried to kiss him. How Marcus had pushed her away and told her to leave. How he'd told me the next day and I'd confronted my mother and she'd cried and said Marcus was lying. That he'd been the one who tried to kiss her. She was just trying to protect me. I believed her because she was my mother, because I wanted to believe her. Marcus and I had broken up a week later. He said he couldn't be with someone who wouldn't believe him over her own mother. He said my family dynamics were too messed up for him to handle. I'd hated him for that, for abandoning me, for not understanding how hard it was to accept that your own mother might be lying. Now I understood. He'd been telling the truth all along. Told David about how my mother had always needed to be the most attractive woman in any room. How she'd get angry if men paid more attention to me than to her. How she'd make cutting comments about my appearance. Are you sure you want to wear that? It's a bit tight on you. Maybe you should try a different hairstyle that one makes. Your face look round. Have you thought about working out more? You're getting a little soft around the middle. I was a size 4. I've always been thin, but my mother made me feel like I was huge. I told him how Tyler had been different from my other boyfriends. How he'd set clear boundaries with my mother from the start. How he'd been polite but firm. How when she tried to hug him too long or touch him inappropriately, he'd step back. How when she made suggestive comments, he'd ignore them or change the subject. How my mother had started to hate him for it. She called him cold, I said. That he didn't know how to be warm with family, but he wasn't cold. He was just protecting himself. He saw what she was doing and he refused to play along. I told David about 3 weeks ago when Tyler had come to my apartment pale and shaking. How he'd told me that my mother had called him at work, said she had a plumbing emergency and needed help. How he'd gone over there because he was a good person who helped people when they asked. How when he'd arrived, my mother had answered the door wearing black lingerie and nothing else. He said she tried to pull him inside. I continued, my voice breaking. Said she told him she knew he wanted her, that all men wanted her, that I was just a child playing dress up and she was a real woman who could give him what he needed. David's jaw tightened, his hands clenched into fists. Tyler left immediately, I said. Didn't even wait to hear what fake emergency she'd made up. He came straight to my apartment and told me everything. He was so upset. He kept apologizing like it was somehow his fault, like he'd done something to lead her on. I'd held him while he shook. Told him it wasn't his fault. Told him I believed him and I had believed him. Finally, after years of making excuses for my mother, I'd believed someone else over her. We talked about cutting contact with her. I said Tyler wanted to protect me from her. He said she was dangerous, that the way she acted wasn't normal, that someone who couldn't take no for an answer was capable of anything. I looked at David. His face was very still, controlled, but his eyes were full of pain. He was right, I whispered. She couldn't take no for an answer, and look what happened. David was quiet for a long moment. People were starting to come out of the chapel now, the service over. My mother was in the center of a cluster of people, still crying, still accepting comfort. She saw me sitting with David and her eyes narrowed. Did you tell the police any of this? David asked. There wasn't an investigation. It was ruled an accident. Maybe there should be an investigation. Patricia came out then and sat down on my other side. She took my hand. Hers was small and soft, a mother's hand. Tell me about the stairs, she said. So I described them. The basement stairs in my mother's house. They were carpeted with thick beige carpet. There was a wooden railing on one side. The walls were painted white and there was good lighting. My mother had installed recessed lights a few years ago. The stairs weren't particularly steep, not compared to some basements I'd seen. There were 13 steps total. Did they find anything at the bottom? Patricia asked. Wine bottles, broken glass, anything that might explain why he fell. I realized I didn't know. I'd been so focused on Tyler, on getting to the hospital, on dealing with the shock of his death that I hadn't asked basic questions about the scene. I don't think so, I said. Was there wine? David asked. Did your mother actually have wine in her basement that she'd asked Tyler to get? I thought about it. My mother didn't drink much. She was always on some diet or cleanse. And when she did drink, it was expensive champagne or white wine, the kind she kept in a wine fridge in her kitchen, not a basement. I don't think she has a wine collection in her basement, I said slowly. I've never seen one. David and Patricia looked at each other, some silent communication passing between them. "We're going to the police," David said, standing up. Right now, the detective who took our statement was a woman named Amber Rodriguez. She was in her 40s, tired-looking with shoulder-length dark hair starting to gray at the temples and kind eyes behind rimless glasses. She wore a simple blazer over a white shirt, and there was a cold cup of coffee on her desk next to a framed photo of 2 teenage kids. She listened to everything I said without interrupting, took notes in neat handwriting, asked clarifying questions. Didn't make me feel crazy or dramatic or like I was wasting her time. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "These are serious accusations. I know you understand that without evidence. This is very difficult to prove. The medical examiner ruled it an accidental death. There were no witnesses besides your mother, and grief can sometimes make us see things that aren't there. Make us want to blame someone. I'm not crazy," I said firmly, "and I'm not making this up. Something happened in that house. Something she's not telling us." Amber studied me for a moment. Then she looked at David and Patricia. "What's your take on this?" I believe her. David said immediately, "Tyler was my son. I knew him. He wasn't careless. He wasn't the kind of person who'd fall down a flight of stairs in the middle of the day for no reason." "And your wife?" Patricia's voice was soft but steady. "Tyler called us 2 days before he died. He said Madison's mother was harassing him. He said he was worried about what she might do. He asked us if we thought he should file a restraining order." Amber sat up straighter. "He said that yes. We told him to talk to Madison first to try to handle it as a family." Patricia's voice broke. "We told him to give her one more chance. We thought maybe if he confronted her directly, told her firmly to stop, she would. We didn't think she couldn't finish." David put his arm around her. Amber was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Let me make some calls." It took 2 weeks, but they reopened the investigation. They went through my mother's house with a forensics team. They examined the basement stairs more carefully. They interviewed neighbors to establish a timeline. They pulled phone records. They looked at everything with fresh eyes. And they found something. There was a security camera at the house next door. The neighbors, an elderly couple named the Hendersons, had installed it 6 months earlier after a string of break-ins in the neighborhood. They hadn't mentioned it initially because they hadn't thought it was relevant. It was pointed at their own property, after all. But cameras have wide angles, and this one caught part of my mother's driveway and her side entrance, the entrance that led directly to the basement stairs. The footage showed Tyler arriving at my mother's house at 1:47 p.m. He sat in his car for 3 minutes before getting out like he was stealing himself, building up courage. Then he walked to the door and knocked. My mother answered. They talked for a moment on the doorstep. Even without audio, you could read Tyler's body language. Stiff, uncomfortable, keeping distance between them. My mother gestured for him to come inside. He hesitated. She said something else. He looked at his phone, checking the time maybe, then nodded and went inside. 43 minutes later, my mother came out alone. She was on her phone. She was calm, too calm for someone who just found their daughter's boyfriend dead in their basement. She walked to the end of the driveway, looked up and down the street, then went back inside. 4 minutes after that, she came out again. This time, she was crying, visibly upset. She got in her car and drove away, drove to the hospital, presumably to be there when the ambulance arrived with Tyler's body. But what happened in those 43 minutes? And why had she come out calm and collected, looked around, then gone back inside before discovering Tyler's body? Detective Rodriguez came to my apartment to tell me about the video. He brought another detective with her, an older man named Frank Morty. They sat in my living room, the living room where Tyler and I had spent so many evenings watching movies and eating takeout and talking about our future, and showed me the footage on a laptop. We searched the basement more thoroughly, Amber said. There were scratches on the wall, defensive wounds, we think, like someone had tried to grab onto something while falling. But the weird thing is they were higher up than they should have been. Too high for someone who just missed a step. What does that mean? It means he might have been pushed from behind with significant force, Frank said. His voice was gruff, matter-of-fact, enough to make him airborne for a moment before he hit the stairs. The trajectory of the fall, the impact points on the stairs, the final position of the body. It's all consistent with a violent push from the top landing. My stomach turned. I imagined Tyler's last moments standing at the top of those stairs. Mother behind him, a sudden shove, the terror of falling, the impact, the pain, the knowing in those final seconds that he'd been right to be afraid of her. "Can you prove it?" I asked. "We're trying. We brought your mother in for questioning yesterday." She stuck to her story. Said Tyler came over to ask about proposing to you. Said she sent him down to get wine as an excuse to give him a moment to collect his thoughts. Said she heard a crash and found him at the bottom of the stairs, but there was no wine. I said, "Correct. We searched the entire basement. No wine storage, no wine bottles, no wine rack, nothing that would suggest he had any reason to be going down there." "What did she say when you pointed that out?" Amber and Frank exchanged glances. She said she must have been mistaken, that maybe she'd asked him to check the circuit breaker or get something from storage. She kept changing her story, trying to find something that fit. "That's not suspicious at all," I said bitterly. "It's very suspicious," Amber agreed. "But suspicious isn't the same as proof. We need more." We asked her which step he fell from. She said the third or fourth from the top. And the blood spatter and impact patterns suggest he fell from much higher, more like he was pushed from the landing at the top of the stairs with enough force to send him into the air before making contact with the stairs. The forensic pathologist reviewed the autopsy. Injuries are consistent with a fall from that height with significant force behind it. The angle of the skull fracture, the cervical spine damage, the way his ribs broke, it all points to a violent push, not a simple trip. So, she's lying. She's definitely lying about something, Frank said, but we need to prove what actually happened. And that means we need more than just inconsistencies in her story. They kept investigating. They pulled phone records for both Tyler and my mother. What they found was damning. The 3 weeks before Tyler died, my mother had called him 47 times in 3 weeks. Tyler had only answered twice, and both calls lasted less than 2 minutes. She'd also texted him a lot. The phone company recovered the messages. They printed them out and showed them to me in Amber's office. My hands shook as I read them. You're making a mistake choosing her over me. I can give you things she never could. I know what men really want. Think you love her, but you don't know what love is. Real passion, real desire. Why won't you answer my calls? I just want to talk. You're being childish. One night with me and you'd understand. Stop ignoring me. I'm not going to let you throw away what we could have together. You felt it that day. I know you did, the connection between us. Madison is a child. She can't satisfy you the way I can. We need to talk. Come to the house. This is ridiculous. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I'm giving you one more chance. Come talk to me or I'll tell her you kissed me. Don't test me, Tyler. I always get what I want. If you don't come, I'll tell her you tried to sleep with me. She'll believe me. She always believes me. That last one was sent the morning he died at 9:23 a.m., less than 5 hours before he showed up at her house. I read them twice, 3 times, trying to reconcile these messages with the mother I thought I knew. But the truth was, this was my mother. This was who she'd always been. I'd just been too close to see it clearly. He never kissed her, I said, looking up at Amber. He never wanted any of this, I believe you. She threatened him. She blackmailed him into coming over. It certainly looks that way. Is this enough? Can you arrest her? Amber hesitated. It's evidence of harassment, of obsession. It establishes motive, but it doesn't prove she pushed him. Defense attorney would argue that he came over to tell her to stop, and then he really did fall. That the texts prove she wanted him, but not that she killed him. But combined with everything else, we have a case. Not a slam dunk, but a case. The texts establish motive and show she lured him there under false pretenses. The security footage shows suspicious behavior after his death. The forensics suggest he was pushed. Changing story about why he was in the basement, the lack of wine, or any other reason for him to be on those stairs. It's circumstantial, but it's building. So what happens now? Now we talk to the district attorney, see if she thinks we have enough to charge. The DA's name was Catherine Walsh. She was in her mid-50s, sharpied with short gray hair and a reputation for taking on difficult cases. She met with me, Tyler's parents, and the detectives in her office 3 days later. She'd reviewed everything, the texts, the video, the forensics, the witness statements. She sat behind her desk with folders full of evidence spread out in front of her. Here's what we have, she said. Clear evidence of harassment and obsession. Clear evidence that the victim was lured to the defendant's home under false pretenses. Clear evidence that the defendant lied about the circumstances of his death. Forensic evidence consistent with a violent push rather than an accidental fall. And we have motive, rejection, and rage. Is it enough? David asked. Catherine leaned back in her chair. In a perfect world, we'd have a confession or a witness or video of the actual incident. But we don't live in a perfect world. What we have is a strong circumstantial case. The question is whether a jury will convict based on that evidence. What do you think? Patricia asked. I think your son's death wasn't an accident. I think Victoria Chen killed him because he rejected her, advances, and I think we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. She paused. But I'll be honest with you, this is going to be a hard trial. Defendant is an attractive, well-spoken woman with no criminal record. She's going to play the grieving, almost mother-in-law. Her defense team is going to paint your son as careless, maybe even suggest he was emotionally unstable. They're going to say the texts were misunderstood, taken out of context. They're going to create doubt wherever they can. But you'll try, I asked. Catherine looked at me. Really? Looked at me. Yes, I'll try because I think justice demands it. They arrested my mother on a Thursday morning. I wasn't there, but I heard about it from my Aunt Linda within an hour. My dad's younger sister, the one person in our family who'd never bought into my mother's act. Madison, they took Victoria in, Linda said, her voice shaking. They showed up at her house with a warrant, handcuffs, everything. She's being charged with murder. I know, I said. I'm the one who went to the police. Silence on the other end of the line. Oh, honey, she killed him, Aunt Linda, because he wouldn't sleep with her. I believe you, Linda said quietly. I wish I didn't, but I do. Victoria has always been. Madison, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you years ago. What? Linda took a deep breath. When you were 12, your mother made a pass at my husband at your uncle, Greg. We were at that family reunion in Lake Tahoe. Remember, Greg and I got in this huge fight that weekend and almost got divorced. You probably don't remember that part. Your parents shielded you from it. I did remember the reunion. Remembered my aunt and uncle barely speaking to each other. Remembered leaving early. What happened? Your mother got drunk one night after everyone went to bed. She went to our room. Greg was still awake reading. She came in wearing next to nothing and tried to get in bed with him. He pushed her away, told her to leave. She laughed like it was all a joke, like she hadn't just tried to sleep with her sister-in-law's husband. Did you? Greg told me immediately. I confronted Victoria the next morning. She cried and said she'd been drunk. Didn't remember, would never do anything like that. She begged me not to tell anyone because it would destroy the family. And like an idiot, I stayed quiet. I thought it was an isolated incident. I thought maybe she really had been too drunk to know what she was doing. But it wasn't isolated. No. Over the years, I watched her do it again and again. Different men, always with plausible deniability, always with an excuse. And everyone always believed her because she's beautiful and charming. And who would suspect someone like Victoria of being a predator? Why didn't you tell me? You were a kid, then a teenager, then a young adult trying to have a relationship with your mother. How was I supposed to tell you that your mother was? She stopped. I'm sorry, Madison. I should have said something sooner. I should have protected you better. It's not your fault. Yes, it is. It all enabled her by staying quiet, by making excuses, by protecting her reputation instead of protecting the people she hurt. And now Tyler is dead because we didn't stop her. I couldn't argue with that because she was right. Tyler was dead because everyone had spent decades making excuses for Victoria Chen. Because beautiful women who cry and play the victim always get the benefit of the doubt because we live in a world where people protect predators instead of their victims. My mother's arraignment was 2 days after her arrest. She pleaded not guilty. Her lawyer argued that she was a pillar of the community, had no criminal record, and should be released on bail. Catherine Walsh argued that she was a flight risk and a danger to the community, that she'd shown no remorse, that she'd attempted to cover up her crime and defame the victim. The judge set bail at $500,000. My mother posted it the same day. Some rich friends pulled together to cover it. She was out by evening back in her house, free to walk around like she hadn't murdered my boyfriend in cold blood. The trial took 8 months to start. 8 months of legal wrangling and motions and discovery. 8 months of my mother walking around free while Tyler was in the ground. During those 8 months, I tried to put my life back together. I went to therapy twice a week. Dr. Reeves specialized in trauma and family dysfunction. She helped me understand that what my mother had done wasn't my fault, that I couldn't have prevented it, that Tyler's death was the result of his choices and my mother's choices, not mine. You didn't bring Tyler into your mother's orbit. Dr. Reeves told me he chose to be with you. He chose to stand up to her. He chose to set boundaries. Those were brave, healthy choices. Your mother chose to respond with violence. That's on her, not you. I also joined a support group for people who'd lost loved ones to violence. We met Thursday nights in a church basement in Brooklyn. There were 8 of us regulars. We were all young people dealing with devastating, preventable loss. There was Amber, whose brother had been shot during a convenience store robbery. She was 24, worked as a teacher, and still had nightmares about the phone call from the police. There was Jake, whose girlfriend had been killed by a drunk driver who ran a red light. He kept his girlfriend's favorite coffee mug on his dresser and talked to it every morning. There was Melissa, whose husband had died in a bar fight that started because someone bumped into someone else, and neither would apologize. She was pregnant when it happened. Their daughter was 4 months old. Now there was Troy, whose best friend had been attacked randomly on the street by someone having a mental health crisis. Wrong place, wrong time. And there was me, the girl whose mother killed her boyfriend because he rejected her. They never made me feel weird about it. In grief group, we were all just people carrying impossible losses. The how didn't matter as much as the missing. Do you ever stop being angry? Amber asked one night. I all thought about it. I don't think so, Jake said finally. I think you just learn to carry it differently. Like it goes from this sharp, stabbing pain to this dull it's always there, but you get stronger at bearing the weight of it. He was right. I was still angry, furious even at my mother for what she'd taken from me. At myself for not protecting Tyler better. At the world for being a place where something like this could happen. But I was learning to live with it. Learning to wake up each morning and put one foot in front of the other even though Tyler wasn't there to walk beside me. The trial finally started in June, almost a year after Tyler's death. The courthouse was downtown, an old building with marble floors and high ceilings that made everything echo. My mother's defense team was led by a man named Randall Pierce. He was from New York, expensive suit, perfectly styled silver hair. He specialized in defending wealthy people accused of crimes. His whole strategy was obvious from the opening statements. Paint Tyler as an unstable young man who developed an obsessive fixation on my mother and suggest that his death was either an accident or possibly not an accident at all. Maybe he'd intentionally flung himself down the stairs in a dramatic gesture. It was disgusting, but it was effective legal strategy. The prosecution's case was led by Catherine Walsh in her second chair, a young prosecutor named James Chen, no relation to my mother, despite the shared last name. They were methodical, building the case piece by piece. They started with the forensics. A forensic pathologist testified about Tyler's injuries, explaining how the pattern of impact suggested a violent push from behind rather than a simple fall. They showed diagrams, photos, explained the physics of it. My mother sat at the defense table looking small and sad. She dressed carefully for trial. Conservative clothes, minimal makeup, hair pulled back, trying to look like a victim instead of a killer. They called Detective Rodriguez, who testified about the investigation. The inconsistencies in my mother's story, the lack of wine in the basement, the security camera footage. They played the footage in court. Tyler arriving hesitant, my mother opening the door, him going inside. Then 43 minutes later, my mother coming out alone, calm, looking around. Going back inside, coming out 4 minutes later, now visibly upset. Why would someone who just found their daughter's boyfriend dead in their basement come outside, look around calmly, then go back inside before calling for help? Catherine asked. Randall Pierce objected. Speculation sustained, the judge said, but the jury heard the question. They saw the video. They could draw their own conclusions. The texts were entered into evidence. All 47 calls, all the messages, the escalating desperation, and then anger. The final threat. If you don't come, I'll tell her you tried to sleep with me. Catherine read them aloud in court, each one more damning than the last. I watched the jury's faces as they listened, saw disgust, saw understanding dawn. Randall Pierce tried to reframe them. These texts show a woman who was concerned about her daughter's relationship. A mother who thought her daughter's boyfriend might not be trustworthy. Yes, she crossed some lines. Yes, she was inappropriate, but inappropriate texts don't equal murder. It was a nice try, but even he had to know how weak it sounded. Tyler's parents testified. David talked about the phone call 2 days before Tyler died when Tyler had asked about getting a restraining order. Patricia talked about what a careful, conscientious person Tyler had been, how he double-checked everything, looked both ways twice before crossing streets, always wore his seatbelt. Is your son the kind of person who would carelessly fall down a flight of stairs? Catherine asked. Objection, Pice said. Calls for speculation, I'll rephrase. Based on your 30 years of knowing your son, did he display characteristics that would make a simple accident like falling downstairs unlikely? Yes, David said firmly. Tyler was extremely careful. Even as a child, he was cautious, methodical. He planned things out. He didn't take unnecessary risks. I testified. Told the jury about my mother's pattern of inappropriate behavior with my boyfriends, about Jake who'd been cornered and kissed, about Marcus who'd been propositioned, about the lingerie incident 3 weeks before Tyler's death. Pierce cross-examined me aggressively, tried to suggest I was making things up because I was angry at my mother, tried to imply Tyler and I had relationship problems, that maybe Tyler really had been attracted to my mother and I was in denial. Isn't it true that you and the victim argued frequently? He asked. No, never argued. Like any couple, we sometimes disagreed about things, but we didn't fight. Isn't it true you were insecure about his feelings for you? No, your mother is an attractive woman, correct? Objection, Catherine said. Relevance goes to motive, Your Honor. The prosecution claims my client was obsessed with the victim, but isn't it possible the situation was reversed, that a young man dating a plain woman might be drawn to her? Attractive mother, I flinched. That word plain like a slap. The judge looked irritated, sustained. Counselor, move on. But the damage was done. Pierce had planted the seed, plain Madison and beautiful Victoria. Which one would a man really want? The trial lasted 3 weeks. Expert witnesses on both sides, character witnesses, people from my mother's church saying what a wonderful person she was, people from Tyler's work saying what a stand-up guy he had been. But the real turning point came near the end. The prosecution had one more piece of evidence, one more thing that tied everything together, Tyler's phone. After he died, the police had collected his belongings from the scene, his wallet, his keys, his phone. The phone had been locked and initially they hadn't been able to access it, but Tyler's parents had provided his passcode and the forensic tech team had gone through it thoroughly. They found a voice memo app. Tyler had been recording, not video, just audio, but it was enough. Catherine played it in court on the 3rd week of trial. The courtroom was packed. Tyler's parents sat in the front row holding hands. My Aunt Linda sat beside me. My mother sat at the defense table, very still. The recording started. Tyler's voice quiet but clear. I'm going inside. If something happens to me, I want someone to know why I'm here. Victoria, Mrs. Chen, has been harassing me for weeks. She won't stop calling. She won't stop texting. This morning, she told me that if I don't come talk to her today, she'll tell Madison that I came on to her, that I tried to kiss her. It's not true. None of it's true. I know Madison has a complicated relationship with her mom, and I don't want to make it worse. I don't want Victoria to poison Madison against me with lies. So I'm going to go in, tell her firmly to stop and leave. That's it. I'll be back at work in an hour. Then silence. Then the sound of a car door opening. Footsteps on pavement, a knock on a door, my mother's voice. Tyler, thank you for coming. I can't stay long. I'm on my lunch break. Come in, please. We need to talk privately. Footsteps, a door closing. Then my mother's voice again. Lower now. Intimate in a way that made my skin crawl. You look so handsome today. Is that a new shirt? Mrs. Chen, I'm not here for call me Victoria, please. We're both adults here. There's no need to be so formal. I'm here because you said you'd tell Madison something that isn't true. I want you to stop. Stop what? Her voice was playful, teasing like this was all a game. Stop calling me. Stop texting me. Stop. He paused, and I could hear the discomfort in his voice. Stop whatever this is you're doing. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. 3 weeks ago, you invited me over here and answered the door in lingerie. You've been sending me inappropriate messages. You've been calling constantly. You told me last week that you had feelings for me, that you and I could be good together. Is that so wrong? Her voice changed. Harder now, colder, to want someone to see potential, to recognize what I could give you. Madison is my daughter and I love her, but she's just a child. She doesn't know how to take care of a man like you. Not the way I could. I love Madison, I'm going to marry her. No. Flat, cold, absolute, you're not. I am. I bought a ring last month. I'm just waiting for the right time to ask her. And I need you to respect that and leave me alone. I'm here to tell you that if you contact me again, I'm filing a restraining order. If you tell Madison any lies about me, I'll show her your texts. All of them, she'll see exactly what you've been doing. A pause. Then my mother laughed. It was an ugly sound, nothing like her usual delicate musical laugh. You think you can threaten me? You think you can come into my house and threaten me? I'm not threatening you. I'm setting a boundary. There's a difference, you arrogant little. She stopped, collected herself. When she spoke again, her voice was syrupy sweet. Tyler, let's not fight. I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. That wasn't my intention. Don't you come sit down? Let's talk about this like adults. I'll make us some coffee. I don't want coffee. I want you to agree to leave me alone. Fine, I'll leave you alone. Happy? Now come sit down just for a minute. Let's end this on a pleasant note instead of with all this tension. Footsteps, then Tyler's voice wary. I'll stand, thanks, suit yourself. Can I at least offer you something to drink? Wine? I have a lovely vintage in the basement. Come on, I'll show you. I need to get back to work. Just 2 minutes, please. I want to show you something down there. A gift I bought for Madison. I want your opinion on whether she'll like it. A pause. I imagine Tyler weighing his options, trying to be polite while also wanting to get out of there. Fine, 2 minutes. Footsteps. Going downstairs based on the echo, Tyler's voice. What did you want to show? This my mother's voice? Close. Intimate. This is what I wanted to show you. Mrs. Chen, don't. One kiss, that's all. One kiss and I'll leave you alone. I promise. No, I'm leaving. This was a mistake. Don't walk away from me. Her voice sharp now, angry. Do you know how many men would kill for a chance with me? Do you know how lucky you are that I want you? I don't want you. I want Madison. I love Madison. You love her. My mother laughed again. That ugly, bitter sound. You think that little mouse is worth more than me? You think she can give you what I can? Goodbye, Mrs. Chen. I'm calling that lawyer today. I said, don't walk away from me. Her voice rose to a shout, a scuffle. Tyler's voice alarmed. What are you? Get off me. You can't just reject me. No one rejects me. No one. Let go. Then a sound, a hard, violent sound, a push maybe or a shove. Then Tyler's voice, just one word sharp with terror. No, a crash, a terrible, sick sound of something. Someone hitting something hard. Multiple impacts, a rolling, tumbling sound. Then silence. Then a gasping sound, wet and labored. Like someone trying to breathe through broken ribs and a collapsed lung. My mother's voice breathless. Oh God, Tyler. Tyler, get up. This is you need to get up, Tyler. More of that wet, gasping sound, growing quieter. No, you can't. Tyler, please, oh God, what did I do? What did I do? The gasping stopped. Complete silence for maybe 10 seconds. Then my mother's voice again. Different now. Calmer. Calculating. Okay. He came over to talk about Madison. Wanted to propose? I sent him down to get wine. He fell. It was an accident. No one can prove otherwise. He fell. That's the story. Footsteps going back up the stairs, a door closing. Silence. 5 minutes of silence on the recording. Then footsteps again, my mother coming back down, her voice testing. Tyler, honey, like she was just discovering him, then a scream. Practiced. Perfect. Oh my God, no, please, no, more footsteps, going back up, a door. And a minute later, my mother's voice again. Calm now, professional. What's your emergency? The recording ended. The courtroom was silent, completely silent. No one moved, no one breathed. I was crying, silent tears running down my face. Beside me, Aunt Linda had her hand over her mouth. In the front row, Patricia was sobbing into David's shoulder. My mother sat at the defense table, perfectly still. Her face was blank, empty, like she wasn't even there. Randall Pierce stood up, mouth opening, probably to object or ask for a mistrial or something. But what could he say? We'd all heard it. Every word, every sound, Tyler's terror, the impact, the wet, dying sounds. My mother's realization of what she'd done followed immediately by her decision to lie about it. The judge banged her gavel. We'll take a recess. 1 hour. They led the jury out. They led my mother out. I stayed in my seat, unable to move. The recording kept playing in my head. Tyler's voice. I love Madison, and my mother's response. You're not going to marry her. She killed him for loving me, for choosing me over her. That was the truth, the ugly narcissistic truth. She couldn't stand that someone preferred me to her. Couldn't tolerate rejection. So she'd taken him away forever. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. That's all 3 hours to decide whether Victoria Chen was a murderer. They came back with a verdict at 4:30 in the afternoon. Guilty murder in the 2nd degree, 15 years to life. Tyler's parents hugged me in the courthouse hallway afterward. Tricia held my face in her hands, her own face wet with tears. Thank you, she said. Thank you for not letting her get away with it. Thank you for fighting for our son. I'm sorry, I said. I'm so sorry I brought him into her life. No, David's voice was firm. Don't apologize. Tyler loved you. That was his choice and it was a good choice. What happened to him was not your fault. It was hers and hers alone. My mother looked at me as they led her away in handcuffs. She didn't look angry. She looked confused, like she genuinely couldn't understand how this had happened, how she'd ended up here. Like she still believed she'd done nothing wrong. Like Tyler had somehow forced her hand by daring to reject her. That was 6 months ago. She's in Meadowbrook Correctional now. Medium security women's prison 3 hours upstate. She sends me letters. I don't open them. My Aunt Linda does though, and she tells me they're all the same. My mother playing the victim, insisting she's innocent, claiming Tyler fell, saying I betrayed her. Saying I'll regret testifying against my own mother. Her lawyer is filing appeals. Catherine Walsh says they won't go anywhere. The evidence was too strong. The recording too damning. No appellate court is going to overturn this conviction. But narcissists don't accept defeat. They keep fighting, keep spinning narratives, keep trying to rewrite reality to fit their version of events. My mother will probably die in prison still believing she's the victim in all this. I've been seeing Dr. Reeves twice a week since the trial ended. We talk about trauma and healing and how to rebuild a life after something like this. She specializes in adult children of narcissistic parents. She tells me what I went through isn't uncommon. Lots of children of narcissists have their lives controlled and manipulated in ways that seem impossible to explain to people who haven't lived it. You survived her. Dr. Reeves told me last week. That's not nothing. Most people with parents like Victoria don't make it out intact, but you did. You're strong, Madison. Stronger than you know. I visit Tyler's grave every Sunday. It's in Riverside, cemetery under a big oak tree. His parents chose the spot. The headstone is simple gray granite with his name, his dates, and a line from his favorite poem by Mary Oliver. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I bring him coffee from his favorite cafe every time I visit. Black, 2 sugars. I pour a little on the ground by his headstone. Offerings for the dead like some ancient ritual. Then I sit and tell him about my week. About how his parents are doing, about how I got promoted at work, about how I'm learning to trust people again, about how I miss him every single day in ways big and small. Missing his laugh, his hand in mine, the way he said my name, the future we were supposed to have. Last week, I finally went through the rest of Tyler's things. His parents had boxed them up and stored them in my closet because I hadn't been ready to face them, but Dr. Reeves said it might help with closure. So I went through the boxes one by one. His clothes, I kept his favorite hoodie, the navy blue one he wore all the time. It doesn't smell like him anymore, but I wear it sometimes anyway. His books, he was a reader, mostly science fiction and fantasy. I donated most of them to the library, kept a few favorites. His laptop. Trisha wanted to keep this. It had photos of Tyler from childhood. Videos, memories, his jewelry box, just a few things, a watch his grandfather gave him, his college class ring and a small velvet box hidden at the bottom. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant. A platinum band with a single diamond. Exactly what I would have chosen. There was a note with it in Tyler's careful handwriting. For Madison, when the time is right, when her mother can't ruin it. I stood there in my closet holding this ring, this future that would never happen, and I cried, ugly crying, the kind where you can't breathe and your whole body shakes. He'd bought it 6 months before he died. According to the receipt in the box, he'd paid for it over 4 months on a payment plan because it was expensive and he wanted to get me something good. He'd been planning, waiting, trying to figure out how to propose without my mother making it about her. He never got the chance. I wear the ring now. Not on my ring finger. That feels wrong. Somehow wearing an engagement ring when I'll never have the engagement, never have the wedding, never have the marriage, but I wear it on a chain around my neck close to my heart. Sometimes people ask me about it. I tell them it belonged to someone I loved, someone who died protecting me in a way because that's what Tyler was trying to do. Protect me from my mother, protect our future together. He succeeded, I guess, just not the way either of us wanted. My Aunt Linda comes over most Tuesday nights now. We order takeout and watch TV and don't talk about my mother unless I want to, which sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. One night, maybe 3 months after the trial, she told me she'd visited my mother in prison. Why, I asked. I wanted to look her in the eye and see if there was any remorse, any understanding of what she'd done, and nothing. She talked about Tyler like he was a possession someone took from her, like he owed her something. She said he'd been leading her on, that he'd flirted with her, that when she tried to be with him, he got scared and that's why he fell. She said you turned him against her. She's insane. No, Linda said thoughtfully. She's not insane. She's a narcissist. She literally cannot conceive of a world where she's not the center of everything. Where someone can look at her and see past the beauty to the emptiness underneath. Where no means no and not just try harder. She'll never change. Madison, people like Victoria don't change. You just get better at hiding what they are. I thought about that after she left. About how my mother had been hiding what she was my entire life. How she'd been so good at playing the victim, the martyr, the misunderstood woman just trying her best until she couldn't hide anymore. Until Tyler said no one too many times and she snapped. Patricia calls me every few weeks. We talk about Tyler. She tells me stories from when he was a kid. How he used to build elaborate Lego structures and get upset if anyone moved a single piece. How he'd spent an entire summer when he was 12 learning to cook because he wanted to make his mom dinner for her birthday. How he'd cried when he left for college because he was going to miss them even though he was excited for the adventure. He would have been a good husband, she said last time we talked. A good father someday. He was already so caring, so thoughtful. He would have loved his children so much. I know, I said, I'm glad he had you, Madison. Even if it was only for 2 years, you made him happy. He told us that all the time, how happy you made him. I think about that a lot. About how 2 years was all we got. How my mother took decades from us. A whole life we should have had. Children we should have raised, growing old together, sitting on a porch somewhere watching sunsets. All of it gone because Victoria Chen couldn't accept rejection. But I also think about what those 2 years meant. How Tyler showed me what real love looked like. How he taught me that boundaries were healthy. That saying no was okay. That I deserved respect. That I wasn't crazy for thinking my mother's behavior was wrong. He gave me the tools to survive. My mother, the courage to stand up to her, the clarity to see her for what she really was, even if it cost him everything. I started dating again 2 months ago. Nothing serious, just coffee dates, getting used to being around someone new, learning to trust again. Dr. Reeves says it's healthy, that I shouldn't feel guilty for moving forward, that Tyler would want me to be happy. I know she's right, but it's still hard. Every time I laugh at something a date says, I feel guilty. Every time I enjoy myself, there's this voice in my head asking how I can be happy when Tyler is dead. But I'm trying one day at a time. one coffee date at a time. There's this guy, Marcus. Different Marcus, not the ex. He's a software engineer, kind eyes, patient. We've been on 3 dates. He knows about Tyler, knows about my mother, knows the whole complicated, tragic mess of my recent past, and he hasn't run away. You've been through something terrible, he told me on our 2nd date. But that doesn't define you. You're not just your trauma. You're all smart and funny and brave as hell for doing what you did. I don't know if anything will come of it with Marcus. Maybe, maybe not. But it's nice to know I can still connect with someone. That my mother didn't destroy my ability to trust completely. Go to grief group every Thursday still. It helps talking to people who understand what it's like to lose someone to violence, to have your life split into before and after, to carry rage and grief and survivor's guilt all mixed together. Last week, Amber said something that stuck with me. We were talking about closure, whether such a thing even exists when you lose someone the way we did. I don't think we get closure, she said. I think we get acceptance. We accept that they're gone. Accept that life isn't fair. We accept that we have to keep living even though they don't. And then we build something new from that acceptance. She's right. I'm learning to accept. Accept that Tyler is gone. Accept that my mother is exactly who she showed herself to be. Accept that I can't change any of it. And I'm trying to build something new. A life that honors Tyler's memory without being consumed by his death. A life that acknowledges what my mother did without giving her any more power over me. Some days are harder than others. Some days I wake up and forget for a moment that Tyler's gone, that I'll never hear his voice again except in that recording, that he'll never make me coffee the way I like it or send me stupid memes or hold me while we watch movies on his couch. Those days are the worst, but other days I wake up and feel grateful. Grateful that I had him at all. Grateful that he loved me enough to stand up to my mother. Grateful that he documented what was happening. Grateful that he helped me see clearly. A killer, not a mother, not anymore. Just a killer who happens to share my DNA. I changed my name 6 months after the trial. Legally, I'm Madison Ellis now. Ellis was Tyler's mother's maiden name. Patricia cried when I told her. Said it would have made Tyler so happy that I was family would always be family no matter what. David helped me with the paperwork, went to the courthouse with me, signed as a witness. When the judge made it official, he hugged me and said, "Welcome to the family, Madison Ellis." My mother sent a letter when she found out. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was short, written in her perfect handwriting on prison stationery. "You're betraying your family, your blood. You're choosing them over me. Your own mother who gave you life. Someday you'll understand that I did what I had to do. That Tyler was trying to take you away from me. I was protecting you, that everything I've ever done has been for you. You'll regret this, Madison. You'll regret turning your back on me." I burned it in my kitchen sink. Watched the paper curl and blacken and turn to ash. Felt nothing. Because that's the thing about narcissists. They rewrite history until they're the hero of every story, even the ones where they're clearly the villain. They take their victims and turn them into villains. They take their own actions and twist them into martyrdom. My mother will go to her grave believing she's the victim. That Tyler deserved what happened for daring to reject her. That I'm the ungrateful daughter who betrayed her. And I'll go to mine knowing the truth. That Tyler loved me, that my mother killed him for it, that justice, imperfect as it is, was served. It's not the ending I wanted. I wanted Tyler alive. I wanted us to get married and have kids and grow old together. I wanted Sunday mornings making pancakes and Friday nights arguing about what to watch and lazy Saturdays doing absolutely nothing. I wanted all of it. Instead, I have memories. A ring on a chain, a gravestone I visit every week, a video message from a dead man, and the knowledge that my mother is spending the rest of her life in a cell. It's not enough. It'll never be enough, but it's what I have. Last night, I dreamed about Tyler again, the same dream I have sometimes. At that beach in Maine, the one we visited in August, 2 months before he died. Cold water and rocky shores and seagulls calling overhead. He's sitting next to me on the rocks, real as anything. The sun is setting behind him, turning everything gold. "You did good," he says. "I miss you," I say. "I know, I miss you too." He smiles, that crooked smile I loved. "But you're going to be okay, Madison. Better than okay. How do you know? Because you're free of her now, really free. She can't hurt you anymore, and that's worth something. That's worth everything." I wake up crying, but not sad crying, something else. Something like relief because he's right, I am free. My mother can't hurt me anymore. Can't manipulate me or gaslight me or make me doubt my own reality. Can't make me feel small. Can't steal any more of my future. She's in a cell and I'm not. That's poetic justice. The narcissist who needed everyone's attention. Locked away where no one can see her perform, where her beauty doesn't matter, where her manipulation doesn't work, where she's just another number in a system that doesn't care about her at all. She's irrelevant now, powerless. And I'm Madison Ellis, 27 now, alive, free, learning to be happy again. Tyler would want that for me. I know he would. So that's what I'm doing. One day at a time, one step at a time. Learning to live in a world without him. Learning to build something new from the ruins my mother left behind. It's not the life I planned. It's not the life I wanted, but it's mine. And she can't take that from me. Not anymore. Not ever.